The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, Abrupt Life Changes, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Century: A New World from Plan B Games. Then they'll be looking back at their review of Rajas of the Ganges in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
Interesting. I wonder if that extra elongated and is fortuitous of anything.
Fortuitous?
Yes. Fortuitous.
Okay.
So this is episode 207, which, with the help of Mr. Blaine Miley, we are calling the Plan B episode, which is a fantastic title. It's a little bit of a different title than we would normally pick, but given it's a, put it this way, it's a meta title. I was going to say a meta tile. That doesn't make any sense. It's a meta title because we are definitely doing Plan B. We were going to be reviewing Watergate, and then things happened, which I'll go into detail in a little bit later.
You want to do that during the review?
Let's do that during the review.
Okay.
Just trust me.
Guys, I got to throw some shade back on the guild here. Because
on the guild?
Yeah, a little bit on the guild. We'll talk about it during the review.
Okay. But also, since we're reviewing Century: A New World, that is from Plan B Games. So yeah, that works out. That's a great title. We get help naming all of our episodes from all of our awesome guild members over on our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2008. If you're not familiar with Board Game Geep?
It's newly rebranded, Board Game Geep.
I don't know what's going on tonight, Alex. I feel a little, like I'm a little chipper.
Yeah?
Like I'm a little over-energized, and my brain is working much faster than my lips are, apparently.
That's fine. Hey.
No, it's good.
It means you're a good lawyer.
I guess. Well, no, I don't want to be stumbling over my speech in court.
Sean, let's see if your newly sped up brain can get this joke.
Okay.
What's gray and will kill you if it falls from a tree?
I don't know.
A parking lot.
Okay.
Yep.
Hold on. What's gray and will kill you if it falls from a tree? A parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you had a sufficiently large tree.
Right.
What am I missing?
You're not missing anything.
Okay, so it's intentionally...
It's an intentionally dumb joke.
Nonsensical joke. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. Hey. Oh, we should mention, in addition, you mentioned kind of the connection with Plan B, the switch up on the review, but also Plan B Games makes Century: A New World.
I did in fact mention that.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. My mind is also racing, and I'm a little energized tonight too, Sean. Woo. It's going to be a good show.
Woo. Yeah.
Should I start off with my news?
Is this when you want to do it? It's your call, man.
I think it's a good spot to do it, because I think this will give folks context for the rest of the episode.
Okay.
So, as people who listened to 2 weeks ago's episode, the 5th anniversary Duke-tacular episode, will remember, I mentioned kind of towards the state of the Duchy, I'd been battling with some depression, some anxiety, not feeling great, and some good news on that front. I've started seeking therapy. I've
cool.
Tried a couple of different folks out, and I think I've settled on someone who's going to be a good fit and help me through some of this stuff. But with some of that kind of opening up and cracking and admitting, and let me stop right there and say thanks to all of the Dukes listeners who reached out in the wake of that and let me know that they were supporting me. Most of them did so privately. I really appreciate that. It was nice to know that support was out there, especially because yeah, I mean, I'll throw the news out there and then we'll kind of backfill in a little bit. So in a little less than 2 weeks from when this episode drops, I will no longer be with Grey Fox Games.
What?
Madness.
I am shocked to be hearing this for the very first time.
You have not heard this for the very first time. Yeah, and I think folks will understand if I'm a little cagey on some of the details. I will say that it wasn't me getting canned. I did go to them and kind of put in my notice. I won't go into the reasons why. I don't see any good reason to do that. It was reasonably amicable, and so wish the fine folks at Gray Fox Games, which I'm going to say now, even though I'm still technically drawing a paycheck from them, I'm going to switch over from Monochromatic Wolf to Gray Fox Games.
Sure.
Even though I'm still drawing a paycheck, conflict of interest is slowly but surely going to be fading on that front. Nothing but amicable in parting ways, and it was the right time for me to do it. And I won't get into too many other details in this context, except answering some frequently asked questions. Frequently asked question number 1, what are you doing next? My answer to that, I don't know. I didn't do this with a plan. I did this because I needed to make a change. That's where I'll leave it. Frequently asked question number 2, are you staying in St. Louis? I am. At least I'm going to attempt to. I've started the job hunt already. I've applied to a few places. Nothing locked in stone or settled, but I'm doing fine, and I like this city, and I plan on staying here. It's got a great board gaming community, and Abby's not too stoked on necessarily moving. I don't see any reason to uproot and hit the life reset button again. So those are the 2 main ones. Frequently asked question number 3, will you be in the industry still? Maybe, maybe not. St. Louis is a reasonably sized town, but the board game community anywhere is going to be only so big. So maybe, maybe not, but it's not necessarily a thing I'm definitely going to do or not going to do. So if folks have other questions, they're free to ask me about them offline, but that's where I'll leave it for the podcast. So yeah, that's my big life news. Now, I will say this was interesting. No one on the guild guessed this. Most common guesses on the guild included Chris K's prediction that I'm getting married to Abby, my girlfriend. And my response to that was, yes, eventually. But there's nothing official on that front, so that one doesn't count. Let me see. There was another prediction on here. Let me scroll down a little bit.
Is there a baby prediction?
Yeah, no baby prediction, which also is not accurate. No baby in the near future. Though eventually I do want to be a dad. So yeah, let me see. Nope, that was, I think that was the main prediction on the guild as to what the news might be. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a big change, and it happened pretty suddenly. It was a pretty quick decision, but I think it was the right one because, as you can tell, I'm feeling pretty energized, and I don't think I've been quite this energized in many episodes. So
that's how we measure time now. In
episodes. Dukes of Dice episodes.
It's not many moons ago. It's many episodes ago.
How many episodes old is Chewie?
She's older than the podcast.
Is she?
Yeah.
Is she really?
By April to May, June, July, August, by about 4 months.
Really?
Yeah, I had the bright idea with a 4-month-old to be like, hey, let's start a podcast.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was we launched it before she was.
Nope,
all right.
4 months after she was born.
Man.
Unless I just have her birthday wrong, which I don't think that's the case.
I mean, it's possible.
Because I'm an excellent father.
I do know since we celebrated our 5th anniversary recently, and she's already a little older than 5, your your memory of events has lined up. So anyway.
And my math is strong.
Yeah. Hey, how are you, by the way? I sort of hogged the spotlight a little bit.
Man, what's your deal? Jeez.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm good. Very, very quick health and food and weight update. I'll keep these very quick. So I'm down a total of 28.2 pounds.
Man.
Since I started back in June. Was it June? Yeah, I think it was June. Things are going well. I don't know if I mentioned this last episode. I had just started reintroducing carbs back in, but now carbs are going back out in a couple days, which I'm very sad about because I made this delicious pulled pork last night, Alex, on top of a baked potato. And I mean, it's a ton of pork, right? Because it's still really high protein. But doing this thing where you're kind of like confusing your body so it doesn't get used to anything. So I'm gonna go pretty low carb for the next 3-4 weeks or so. But no, it's going good. Gym's going good. Clothes are fitting better. Got more energy. I'm like I'm leading a more active lifestyle. So it's going awesome. And
keep it up.
Yeah. Yep. In fact, what's interesting is, you and I met playing kickball years ago. The year before, someone, and this is like 9 years ago, someone had posted from that team had posted this picture of us where we were on the Kickball magazine, the local,
The local kickball magazine, of course.
well, for the league, for that kickball league.
Sure.
And man, so I was probably like 195 in that picture.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I was like, holy cow. So it just happened to pop up today. Someone posted it and I was just like, okay, cool. Like that's maybe doable. 195, I don't know. 210, that's like I said before, that's the goal. But anyway, let's move on past that. Hopefully I'll have a better or an additional gooder update next time. But no, it's going good. And yeah, I move next week, offices, super stressed out. There are a million things that can go wrong and about 500,000 of them are. So pretty stressful, but
it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You can do it, Sean. I believe in you.
Woo. Yep. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. Well, Alex, do you think we should talk about some board games?
That is what this show is about, though so far it hasn't been much about.
How far are we in here? Yeah, this is one of the longer intros.
No doubt, but understandably so. Kick us off, Sean. Talk us through a game.
So about a year ago, Alex, I picked up a copy of Innovation Deluxe from Asmati Games. And I had played Innovation the first time several years ago. Actually, probably one of the first couple times I met Matthew. He had actually taught it. Raquel and I played it with him. We were actually at a coffee house playing it. And it was a little dense at the time. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. I enjoy this. I'd played it like maybe once, probably not twice since then. Maybe a couple years after that, when we had really kind of done our deep dive into Carl Chudik games. And I played like, an old copy of Innovation. Well, anyway, the deluxe copy has beautiful cards. It's got the main game, plus it has the 4 expansions that you can play with as well. And Alex, oh my God, I am obsessed with this game. Raquel is obsessed with it. Rory's obsessed with it. Rory's fiance Marie is obsessed with it. I have played this game now 12 times in the last week.
That's a lot.
Legit. Yeah, like quite a bit. And it's about a 45-minute to an hour game, depending on the number of players you have and the expansion you're playing with. So for those that don't know, real quick, Innovation is a multi-use card game. It's a civilization builder where you have 10 decks of cards, ages 1 through 10, and you start off in age 1, and you're drawing cards to your hand. You're potentially melding them onto the board where they have special actions that you can then activate. The way that you activate them is based on the number of icons. So there are different types of technologies or schools of technology. So there's like natural knowledge, which are these leaves. There's, I don't know if you call it's light bulbs. It's not really electricity, but I guess it's kind of like inventiveness or something. And so when you're activating a card, you check to see if you have more icons in your tableau than any other player. And if you do, only you get to take that action. But if other people have as many or more than you, they also get to take that action first. But by them taking the action, you're going to get to draw a bonus card, which is pretty cool. And so you're playing these cards out there. Eventually, you are potentially splaying melded cards. So how do I put this? So you're putting cards on top of each other, and then eventually you're splaying them left to reveal some more icons. And then you might splay them right to reveal even more icons. You might splay them up to reveal even more icons than that. And then there's just really cool effects. Man, this game is super good. Like I said, 12 games in it's actually 8 days now, which is pretty impressive. I played it one Sunday. Oh no, it's actually more than that. It's more like 10 days. I played it with like Rory and Marie on a Sunday. Last Saturday, Raquel and I played like 4 games of it. Got in a huge fight, by the way. It's pretty funny. And
okay.
And like Marie wants to set up an innovation tournament at Empire, and we're supposed to go over to Roy Marie's this weekend for stakes and innovation. If I had replayed this like a month ago, there is an incredibly good chance this could have wound up in my top 10.
Wow.
And everyone that's been playing it, because we've probably taught like 5 or 6 people, have been basically saying like, oh, I like this more than Motainai.
Do you like it more than Motainai?
I don't I don't know. Motainai is a little bit, Innovation feels like a board game, right? It's a card game and you've got these big giant tableaus and it's a little bit longer. It's a little bit more in depth. And so it feels like more of a meatier game. I don't know yet, but I like this quite a bit. Like if other than Magic, if I were to pick like the game I've enjoyed most this year, like having like picked back up, it would be Innovation. It is incredible. And I wish I had played my deluxe copy much sooner. And I wish I had been playing it all these years since I first learned it. It's super good. Did you ever play Innovation? You've played it,
I played
right?
it. Yeah, I played it with Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you mentioned on the show.
Yeah.
But you're not obsessed with it, Alex.
No, I have a copy. I actually have a copy too.
Do you have a copy?
I do have a copy.
Oh my
I backed the
goodness.
Kickstarter for it.
Oh my goodness. Is it the deluxe version?
I think so.
Like it's like black and gold?
I don't know. It sounds right.
I also went crazy printing up a bunch of deck trays. So I have these interlocking deck trays that I use for a bunch of different card games. I can print them at different heights. So I've got these little tiny trays for each deck of cards. They stack and they interlock with each other. So it's great for storage and also keeps the play area organized. Man, Innovation from Asmati and Carl Chuddik. Carl Chuddik is just an incredible designer. Just an incredible designer. And hopefully he'd get over to the States at some point because he's in China, right?
When I tried to interview him for the podcast a couple of times, and that's what I kept getting told.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if that'll happen, but yeah. I remember enjoying the game. I didn't like it anywhere near as much as Motainai, but it was in the category of good Chuddik instead of bad Chuddik.
Sure.
So, yeah, I like the game.
So anyway, that's Innovation. If you've got access to it, I'm not sure about its availability right now. I can look that up, but definitely check it out. It is really solid Carl Chuddik game.
Very cool. Well, at Gray Fox Games Test Night, which is the play test night that happens at my soon-to-be former employer, Gray Fox Games, someone brought a copy of Blockbuster. Sean, have you seen Blockbuster out on the table at Empire at any point?
I have not.
So this is a game that comes in a VHS cassette tape box, much like the video rental cases you would see at Blockbuster. Sean, were your memories of Blockbuster fond ones? Do you recall much about that whole era?
Oh yeah, no, I used to love Blockbuster, or just video stores in general, I guess. But I remember, there'd always be like popcorn and candy, and then the movies, and yeah, no, it was fun. But I can't imagine going back to that.
I'm just imagining trying to explain the whole business model to my kids someday. You had to pay late fees? Why? Well, because it wasn't a digital anyway. So this is a game meant to evoke those classic days of the video cassette and the video rental store. I should mention at GenCon they had this is Big Potato Games. They had an entire booth that was decked out like an old Blockbuster, and it looked really good. Their employees, their booth staff were all dressed in the Blockbuster uniform. It was masterfully done, and I'm sure they sold a ton of copies. Here's the game itself. The game itself is a movie-themed game. So you'll start off with a kind of a head-to-head round. Two people will face off. This game's played in teams. And there will be a timer going. And it'll be movies that start with a B, or movies that have a chase scene in them, or movies... It's just a category of things. Then you have to go back and forth naming a movie from each one and hitting the button, naming a thing, hitting the button, naming a thing, hitting the button, until someone screws up and either can't name something or doesn't do it in time or names something that doesn't count. And if that's the case, then the other team gains advantage for the actual scoring part of the round. So the scoring part of the round, you will draw 6 movie cards. The team who won the face-off round gets to pick the 3 that they get to keep, and they'll pass the other 3 to the opponents. The cards themselves are just movies. They're movies in one of 8 different categories that come in the game. Things like sci-fi or family adventure, those kinds of things. And you'll place the 3 cards you have once you've been assigned those 3 cards. You'll place them on one of 3 spots. One is one word only. The other one is quote it. And the other one is act it. And so for one word only, you have to pick up the card, say only one word, and hopefully your team will get that movie off of only that one word. For quote it, you will say a quote from the movie. If you don't know a quote from the movie, you're allowed to make one up as long as you don't actually say the movie's name in it. So you're allowed to kind of communicate a little bit more that way. And then act it is typical charades, pantomiming, doing whatever you can to get your team to guess it. You have 30 seconds to get your team to guess as many of these as possible. If you get through all 3 of your own, you can start picking up the other teams and acting out those or giving clues for those. Once one team has acquired 8 of one movie from each of the 8 different categories, they immediately win. That's the entire game. It's a party game, plays in teams, plays really well. If you have folks who like movies, this will be great. It comes with a little buzzer that you can either tap to have be on a 15-second timer for the heads-up round, or hold down to be on a 30-second timer for the actual scoring part of the game. It led to a lot of high fives. It led to a lot of laughs, and it did exactly what you want a party game to do. So this is a solid one from Big Potato Games. Well produced. You like that VHS cover. It gives it a kind of a distinct presence, and yeah, it works out really well. So. Surprisingly, Sean, for any longtime listeners to the show, I did know some of the movies that we were talking about in this. I had seen some of them. I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, that sounds interesting. I'd play that.
Yeah, I think it's a good one, especially for non-gamers. It does exactly what it's trying to do. So that's Blockbuster from Big Potato Games.
Cool. So I accidentally came across a copy of a Marvel board game about Black Panther. It's called Wakanda Forever, Alex. And I'll explain during the review how I came across this copy.
We're doing a full review? Oh, I'm not prepared for this one, Sean.
No. The review, our actual review game of Century.
I see. Yes.
So I picked up a copy of Wakanda Forever at first thinking that it was the same company that did Thanos Rising. Was that USAopoly that did Thanos Rising?
Ooh, maybe. Yeah, that sounds right to me. I'll do some research. I'll do some quick research while you're talking about this.
So it turns out it's actually by Spin Master Games, or I guess they're not games. I think it's just Spin Master. And Spin Master is the company that did Hail Hydra, which is a secret identity game that we reviewed a while back that neither of us were too crazy about. So this turned out to be a Spin Master game. It looked a little bit like Thanos Rising in a certain sense, but it's nothing like it. So in Wakanda Forever, you are trying to be the first person to gain a certain value of Wakanda points. That's the terminology it uses. They're Wakanda points. And be the Black Panther. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're doing this by mining vibranium at certain points in the game. You're going to spend that vibranium to power your weapons. And doing so will basically give you extra dice because there is a villain that is attacking Wakanda. And the villain is placed on the Great Mound, and you have to roll certain dice to fight him, do some damage. Each point of damage you do gives you a Wakanda point, and there's also bonuses if you reach certain things in the track, or certain points in the track. You attack the villain in order, starting with the Black Panther and going clockwise. And so it could be that you don't get to go at all because you're last, and the villain's almost dead, and the players in front of you already killed him, and that's fine, because now you haven't spent any of your vibranium, which you're going to need, because at the end of each round, you're going to either choose to yield to the Black Panther or to challenge the Black Panther. If you yield to the Black Panther, you get a Wakanda point. But if you challenge the Black Panther, and you're the only one to challenge, or if there are multiple challengers and you happen to have the most vibranium reserved, then you get to fight the Black Panther. It's a dice roll-off after you've chosen to power your weapons again with vibranium. And then if you get more hits than the Black Panther, you become the new Black Panther. As the Black Panther, you get 2 things. First, whenever you're attacking the villain, you get a Dora Milaje die, which is, the wives of the king. Actually, I don't think in the movies they're the wives, but in the comic books, they're technically the wives of the king. They're the women warriors like Okoye. And it's a really powerful die. So that's a benefit you get as the Black Panther. You also get to keep the villain card if it's defeated. The person that kills the villain gets some bonus points, bonus Wakanda points. But as the Black Panther, you get to keep the card, which gives you some sort of special ability. That's the game. It is not good, Alex. It is not good at all. Wakanda Forever, more like Wakanda Never. I just thought that, I swear.
All right.
It was really bad. It was just kind of a very procedural game, and you're doing the same thing. It was just very samey, Nothing exciting. I love the fact that not only do you have the villain on the mound that's attacking, but there's 2 other villains that are face up that are approaching, so that you can strategically plan things. No, not really. Like, it's just kind of a waste. You could just blind flip it. It's really not going to change much in terms of gameplay. In theory, there were some interesting moments like, oh, okay, I'm going to not spend too much vibranium here because I want to be able to challenge the Black Panther. Maybe I'm just a couple points short of winning, but I need to have enough to become the Black Panther. I don't know. It wasn't good. And I thought of a game like Thanos Rising, which looked, on its surface, looked as good, but it was actually a lot of fun. And the weird things about Wakanda Forever is the villain doesn't do anything. The villain's never hurting you or attacking you. Technically, the villain is keeping one player from mining as effectively as possible, but it's completely random. But there's no like threat of that villain. It's not doing anything to you. You'd think that there would be some kind of semi-cooperative nature to the game, but it's completely competitive. And it just wasn't good. And we were pretty miserable. I played both a long game. I played 2 games of this, Alex. A long game and the short game. Matt and Matthew, who both love Thanos Rising, were like, we got to play this. We got to play this. I played this before they got there. And I'm like, guys, we're not doing this. It's bad. And they forced us to do it, and we did it. And it was bad, and they regret all their life decisions. So what'd you find out about Thanos Rising? Was it USAopoly?
It is USAopoly.
Okay. So
yes,
I picked it up thinking that this was also USAopoly, and it was not. Unless you're a huge Black Panther fan, stay away from Wakanda Forever.
Sounds like even if you are a big Black Panther fan, you should probably stay away from it.
Yeah, just stay away from it.
All right. Well, fair enough.
So that's Wakanda Forever from Spin Master.
Well, I played something that's a little bit better than that one. It's a game that got a ton of buzz out at GenCon, sold out pretty quickly, and I only ended up getting a copy because I wandered by the yellow booth before the GenCon hall opened, and I just happened to be by that booth at the right time and got a demo copy that they'd been using. A game called Ishtar. Ishtar from Yellow. I believe this might be a Bruno Cathala game. Oh, let me think about that.
How about I research this time?
How about you research this time and you double check?
Teamwork.
Teamwork. I love it. So in Ishtar, you are trying to get the most points. You're going to get points by each turn. You're going to draft a tile. There's a watering can, and then if you want to take the next tile in order around this kind of rondelle, you can take that for free, or you can spend gems, which are a big resource in the game, to advance further and grab something further down. The tiles that you're going to get are either a 3 in a straight line, or a triangle, or a bend. Those are the different kinds of tiles you're going to get. On those tiles, they're going to have flower beds. They're going to have potential skill upgrades, and they're going to have potential worker placement spaces. And not worker placement in the typical sense, but just you can place someone to control a flower bed. I think they're called attendants in the game. So you're going to place one of those legally on the board somewhere. It's going to be attached to one of the game's fountains. So there's, depending on the player count, I think at 3 players, there's 5 fountains that you can potentially battle for control over. When you place the tile, you'll get all the gems that it covers. And then you can use those gems to buy trees, which you can plant on some of those tiles. Or you can use those gems to upgrade your skill. There's, oddly enough, a tech tree on your own player board that you can work your way up to get some cool endgame bonuses and benefits. Or you can place, again, your attendant in one of those flower bed spaces, and the larger that flower bed is at the end of the game, the more points you're going to get. You're going to get 1 point per flower. You're also going to get points for who controls tiles. You're going to get some points from the tech tree, and you're going to get points from the tree cards themselves that you plant. It's a fairly elegant area control game that has a gorgeous-looking table presence, and the kind of production you typically expect from Yellow, and plays really well. Really solid game. I will say this for the game. We played it 3 players. If we were playing at 2, I think that would have been fine. If we were playing at 4, I think that would have been too many for this game. Because the turns themselves, here are the things you do on your turn, Sean. You're going to pick a tile. You're then going to determine where to place the tile. You're going to collect the gems. Then you're either going to do some sort of skill or placement, possibly, and then you're going to plant trees, depending on if you have the resources to do so. That's a good chunk of things in the turn, and there are different points where those decisions can kind of come to a screeching halt. It's certainly not a quick moving game, and the downtime between turns, there's literally nothing you're doing in between turns in this game except kind of waiting and watching for someone to make whatever placement they're going to make. Sometimes there's discussion that arises at the table, a la Prater, about, well, maybe if you placed it here, you could get most gems. There's a little bit of table politicking because of the area control nature of the game. It works really well. I wouldn't play it with more than 3. So I enjoyed my play of this. I think there's a good chance you'll enjoy it too, Sean. But no more than 3 players with this one, please. I haven't tried it with 2. Don't know if it's any good at that count. It was certainly engaging at 3, but I wouldn't want to play with even one more player. Sean, anything that you found on the designer of this game?
Alex, I heard nothing you said because I went down a rabbit hole of a board game mystery.
What?
So the designers are Bruno Catala.
Okay, I got that one right.
And Evan Singh.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, who's Evan Singh? I clicked on his link in BGG, and all it says on the BGG page for designer Evan Singh is Evan Singh is a pseudonym.
Oh, yeah, that's all it says.
Okay.
Huh.
Okay. So I'm like, all right, let me see if I can figure out who this guy is. It's possible that it's someone named Evan Luthra. Evan Singh Luthra. I don't know if it's him. I don't know, Alex, but this is a person who is a social investor, mobile application developer, and world traveler. And he's the co-founder of several tech companies, and he designed his first app at age 13.
All right.
Which would have been, he was born in 95, so that's 2008. Were there apps in 2008?
Possibly.
See, now we're going to find out if there were apps in 2008.
All right, hang on. I'm going down that rabbit hole.
I know.
iPhone
this is weird.
Came out when?
So
2007. The iPhone came out in 2007.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know if this is him or not. I'm curious why it's a pseudonym, why you wouldn't want to put your name on a sweet design. That's all I got, Alex. I don't know.
All right.
Now I want to find out. So let's start something. Let's figure this out. Let's put the guild on this. Guild, who is Evan Singh? Who is he? Who is he?
Well, that got creepy quickly.
Could be a she.
could be. It is a pseudonym. We don't know. Well, that's Ishtar from Yellow. That's what we played. Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, first up in news, an award that Sean watches very, very closely. Not the Spiel des Jahres or the Kenner Spiel, though you do watch those too, Sean. But the real winner for you most years is the Jogo do Ano. Sean, what is this award?
Do you remember from Saturday Night Live, Alex? David S. Pumpkins?
Yeah, I do. Very fondly, in fact.
I feel like Evan Singh is my David S. Pumpkins.
Okay.
I'm all in the weeds with this Evan Singh.
Okay.
If you've never watched David S. Pumpkins from SNL, go to YouTube.
Go watch it. First of all, it's a very solid skit.
Yeah, like Tom Hanks.
Especially because we're not too far away from Halloween.
Yeah. But don't watch the David S. Pumpkins Halloween special because that was really bad.
I didn't watch it. I heard it was trash.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Anyway, the Jogo de Ano, I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. It's not a Spanish J, it's a Portuguese J, is a heavier award. So awards, heavier games. The nominees were Airship City, Blackout, Underwater Cities, and Teotihuacan. And I haven't played Airship City. In fact, I don't know too much about it. Root was the winner. Root is a fantastic game. I think it's a very worthy winner. I think it would probably be a pretty tough toss-up for me between Underwater Cities and Teotihuacan, but I think I'd probably give it to Underwater Cities. You know, the Teotihuacan expansion's coming out soon. I'm curious to see what that's going to do for the game. We're going to try and get that to the table pretty quickly here. But Underwater Cities, man, it's just a really good game. And not to say that Root isn't. Root's great. I enjoy it. But I think having played Gandhi several times since playing Root, there's just so much more meat with the full-blown coin games. What are your thoughts? Because you've played everything. We haven't played Airships, and you haven't played Teotihuacan.
I haven't played Teotihuacan. I've wanted to try it. I haven't tried it just yet. I mean, of those, I think Root has been the most enduring. I think Underwater City certainly has developed a very profound following. Teotihuacan has as well. But I think of that list, yeah, Root and Teotihuacan are the two that are standouts, and I think Root's a fine winner. I think you'd have a hard time really truly complaining about that one.
Sure.
So it's not my class of award though. This is I've played a lot of these, but they are not typically in my wheelhouse.
And to give you an idea, past year winners, like 2018 was Lisboa, which is just a fantastic game. 2017, Great Western Trail, another one that I love. 2016, Mombasa, which I just played again about a month or two ago, probably closer to 2 months ago. 2015 was La Granja. So yeah, I mean, it's a solid award and solid nominees all around, including this year. And I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for Airship City, because if it's nominated, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, fair enough. No secondary bit of news, because, hey, I already gave some pretty big news in this show, so you're welcome. But I will mention a Kickstarter that caught my attention, and there have been several this week that have come out on fire. One was Muffin Time. Sean, are you familiar with the IP that is Muffin Time?
I know nothing of Muffin Time.
It's a video that has 137 million views on YouTube.
Of course it does.
And this is a card game based off of that. But that's not the Kickstarter I want to focus on, despite the crazy amount of money that game has made. The one that caught my attention was Evil Dead 2 game. Evil Dead 2 game from Jasco. This, if it sounds familiar, it's because there was a previous Evil Dead 2 Kickstarter. Before I can dig too far into this, Sean, I actually don't know this IP very well.
Oh, really?
I certainly haven't seen the movie.
So there's Evil Dead. There's Evil Dead 2. There's Army of Darkness. Then there was...
I hear some of these are campy and delightful.
Oh, they're all terribly campy, and I love them. And then I think it's Stars. It's on Netflix now. Did 2 or 3 seasons of Ash versus Evil Dead, which was like there were like 10-episode seasons. The last one ended on a great cliffhanger, and then they canceled the show. So that's sad.
Whoops.
But I'm a huge fan of Bruce Campbell and a huge fan of the series. And it's solid.
My only experience with the Evil Dead series was with the remake.
Yeah,
never apparently is not. Well, I know it's not campy, but apparently it's very different from the other movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I did not care for it. I had to leave the room.
Ew.
I was too squeamed out, which isn't even a word, but I'm making it a word right now. In any case, Space Goat Productions had launched the campaign previously and had been funded at a pretty decent clip, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look it up, but it was certainly funded enough to where they didn't have a good excuse for not delivering. They also had a Terminator-related game at the same time, Space Goat did, and then everything just kind of fell apart. And then I think in past episodes we've talked about this. Basically, Space Goat tried to run a crowdfunding campaign, crowdfunding finance campaign is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
To sell equity in Space Goat, and that didn't really work because the backers were so upset, and it all just kind of melted down. Jasco has stepped in and basically said, hey, this, you guys did Evil Dead 2 fans wrong. We have an Evil Dead 2 game. It's not the same game. In fact, it's a different game. But if this campaign funds, and they're calling this a quote-unquote heartthrob campaign, if this campaign successfully funds, all of the backers of that previous campaign will be getting a copy of Evil Dead 2 for only the cost of shipping. So the game is free, shipping isn't. And so it's kind of meant as a, hey, we're so sorry this happened to you, but here's something that hopefully makes things feel a little bit better.
Wow.
And a really cool gesture. A really cool gesture. Sean, I don't know this IP very well. You were kind of poking through the game itself. Did the game itself look worthy to you? Look interesting?
Yeah, it looks like a minis game. So you're basically fighting a bunch of Deadites, which are demonic possessed zombies. They're intelligent. Yeah, it looks like a pretty standard fare of a miniatures game. I didn't get too deep into this. I don't know that there's anything particularly innovative about it. It says under key features, relive the movie and work with your friends to close the portal or betray them for the side of evil. Watch as your favorite Evil Dead 2 characters come to life with high-quality unpainted miniatures for both the heroes and their enemies. Explore the cabin game board taken straight from the movie. Yeah. I mean, I would play this. If our buddy Jared wants to buy this, paint up his copy in the way that he does, and then play it with me, I'll certainly do that.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I mean, the story behind it's cool.
The story behind it is cool. I will say this, though. It has a funding goal that is ambitious and accurate. I will mention that recently Kickstarter made it so that you're supposed to make your funding goals closer to being correct and accurate and what they should be based off of. Because I think they have the liability, or they're taking on the liability of the past Evil Dead 2 campaign, they've made the funding goal for this $195,000.
Yeah.
That is a big funding goal to hit. That is a big ask. Partly the problem with that strategically on a Kickstarter campaign is there's a game that creators play where you set it too low, people get skeptical, right? If you set this at $100, people would be like, you can't actually make this for $100. Something doesn't smell right. Sort of like if someone tried to sell you a gold watch for $15. You probably wouldn't really think it's gold. On the other hand, people want to be part of a successful thing. They want to be part of a movement. They want to be part of the thing that's cool. The better something is doing, the more and more backers are attracted. And people also generally don't like to pledge for things that aren't going to happen. So by setting a funding goal this high, it's ambitious, it's certainly accurate, but it's also making it that much harder in the early going for folks to jump on board enthusiastically. And honestly, some of probably what will hold them back will be just the fact that the past campaign had such a negative connotation. Even though they had absolutely nothing to do with it, that negative connotation is still going to be in the air. At the moment, as of the time of this recording, it's just shy of $40,000. And they're a couple of days into the campaign, so that's a long road to go. That's a big hill to climb. So I don't know if it'll get funded, but I think it's a generous offer and certainly caught my attention.
I like the box cover because it looks like the Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pick up the game, Alex, it's just like picking up the Necronomicon. You have to utter the right phrase. So, Alex, I want you to repeat after me in case you ever pick this up. Because if you pick it up and don't say the phrase correctly, you will awaken the Deadites.
Sean, I will stop you there. There is zero chance I ever play this game.
Just in case.
0.0% chance I will ever play this game.
Listen, if someone says that there is a 1% chance that you can raise an army of the dead, then you might as well just learn the magic phrase, Alex.
Yeah, again, 0.0, not 1, 0.
Just play along with
0.0.
Klaatu Barada Nikto. Go ahead and say it.
No.
Well, great.
I'm not your puppet.
If there's, well, you will be once the Deadites rise, because.
Oh, okay. Because you'll be controlling them?
No, but eventually they'll probably find me and possess me. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm just saying. I don't know. Look, I offered you a way out, but that's fine. Refuse it.
No, it's good. Yeah, I'll pass. Thanks, though.
Man, you're worse than Ash.
That is Evil Dead 2. That campaign is running through September 13th. Base pledge is $59, so pretty inexpensive for a miniatures game. And they're trying to get to $195,000. That's Evil Dead 2. And that is a look at the news. La 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 roar. La 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 roar.
What, Alex?
Yes. Yes, Sean.
What are you doing?
I'm practicing my dragon scales. Dragon Scales from Arcane Wonders is a game designed by Richard Lanius. It just released at GenCon in Dragon Scales, which is not at all about singing and practicing scales where you roar at the end of them. You're playing a formidable villain. Your sinister conquests are innumerable, but there's one foe that even you cannot vanquish alone. Arcarex, the Lord of Dragons. A hoard of treasure beyond imagining waits to be claimed. The scales of this dragon are more valuable than any amount of gold or gems. Will your loose alliance be able to take down Arcarex? Or will this great dragon's rage consume you all? And that is Dragon Scales. Not at all about singing, Sean. Fun fact.
But I'm sure that, Alex, when you play it, you'll make it all about singing nonetheless.
Yep, I will find an opportunity to sing every single card. So this is a game you're going to want to play with me.
So even though this came out at GenCon, we're looking for a general release in the middle of September. So be sure to check out your friendly local game store or your favorite online retailer to pick up a copy of Dragon Scales from Arcane Wonders.
It's never a blunder when you go with Arcane Wonders.
So Alex, I have a question for you.
Yes?
Is it possible that Berkey has cloned himself like Michael Keaton in the movie Multiplicity?
I have not seen that movie.
Okay, assume it's a movie about someone cloning themselves. So there's a bunch of different versions of themselves.
Uh-huh.
Has Berkey done that? Is that what's happened?
I don't think so, but he is a pretty busy guy, so it wouldn't surprise me.
He must have been like at 5 different booths at once during Gen Con, right?
He was at the Monochromatic Wolf booth. I know that much. He was at a bunch of other booths too.
You're really helping play this bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he was everywhere. I can't believe how many Berkeys I saw.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Game Toppers had quite the presence at some of your favorite game publisher booths, showing off the awesome tabletoppers that enhance your home tabletop experience. Now, unfortunately, Alex, the Kickstarter is over, but you can late pledge. So if you're looking for an affordable, high-quality tabletopper, you can get that still if you go over to GameToppersLLC.com, but you have to hurry. August 25th is the deadline to do a late pledge. So hurry, because they unlocked like 40 plus stretch goals. There's tons of options in terms of mats you can put on the table, whether it's just, a plain, nice red or green mat, or whether there's terrain and cool art, all sorts of options for you to choose from over at GameToppersLLC.com.
GameToppersLLC.com.
Good addition.
Trilogies. Made famous by movies, and sometimes they're a true delight for fans, especially when things can end on a positive note. But there can be some cases, like The Matrix, where things go a little bit sideways in the final installment of a trilogy. So, this week we are talking about the third game of a trilogy, Century: A New World, the third game in the Century Spice Road series. Does this one live up to the lofty heights of a true movie trilogy? I have to redo all that. That got long and dumb.
That's it. Let's go to the review.
Nope, I'm wondering.
Nope. That's it.
Oh, okay. No take. Is this a good one or is it a bad one? We'll find out.
So, Alex, I first have to say that your analogy of the Matrix trilogy is flawed.
Okay. Oh, because it got bad in the second one.
No, they just announced the fourth one's coming out.
What?
Yeah, they're making a fourth trilogy. Fourth movie, rather. Fourth Matrix.
What?
With one of the Wachowski siblings directing, and with Neo, with Bill and Ted, with Ted. What's his face?
Oh.
Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss.
This happened yesterday. I don't feel too bad about not hearing about this.
Same day. Did you know about Spider-Man?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay, they both came out on the same
Marvel, Sony fight, whatever. Yeah.
Anyway, Century Spice Road is from Plan B Games, designed by Emerson Matsuuchi. And
wait, Century Spice Road? Is that what we're...
Sorry,
I thought we were reviewing A New World.
Sorry, Century: A New World. It's just...
No, we're leaving all the mistakes in this time. I love it.
Muscle tongue memory, I suppose. I'm just so used to saying Century Spice Road.
Your brain's just moving too fast again, Sean.
Yeah, all of the games in the trilogy use a similar mechanic where there are 4 different resources, and they are progressively better than the others. So there's a yellow resource, which goes into a red, and then a green, and then a brown. And essentially, you're trying to collect these resources to turn them in for goal cards, which will give you some amount of points. And when you have a certain number of goal cards, that's going to trigger the end game. And that's pretty consistent across all 3 games. But there are slight differences from one to the other. So, for example, Century Spice Road is the hand management version. Century Eastern Wonders has a spatial movement, spatial action selection similar to a game like Yamatai, for example. Guess what? Didn't care for Century Eastern Road too much, because I don't like Yamatai that much. And then this is the worker placement version of that. So the object here, again, is to score the most points, and you're going to do that by collecting these goal cards. But what's different about these goal cards is in addition to giving you points, they're also going to give you some special abilities, which is pretty neat. And I'll come back to that in a second. So you're going to lay out the board, and it's a semi-modular board. And there are different spots to go to get things. Like, so for example, you could spend one worker to get 2 yellow cubes, which in this game is corn. I think previous games it was saffron. So you get one worker, you get 2 corn, 2 yellow cubes. You could also spend one worker to get 1 green cube, which is tobacco. You could spend, I can't remember the exact numbers. I think it's 2 for a red cube, which is meat, and then 3 for the brown cube, which is
fur.
What?
Fur.
That's
It's
right,
fur.
Yeah. So those are kind of the basic, you get these things, but then there's other spaces that will let you upgrade cubes. There's other spaces that will let you say turn 1 green into 2 yellow or 3 yellow or something like that. And so you're using these spaces to kind of get cubes and then turn them into other cubes to eventually spend them on the goal cards. But what's really interesting here, like I said, is there's these special abilities. So when you go up to the worker space to turn in the goal cards, you're going to spend a certain number of workers. If it's all the way on the left, it's only 1 worker. And then I think the second one is also 1. And then it's like 2, 3, 4 maybe. And these cycle through. So if you pull the far left one, they're all going to slide down. So they'll get cheaper as time goes on. But sometimes you kind of jump ahead here. But when you get them, in addition to the points, there's also a symbol on them, which there's sort of a set collection element here. But then also, like I mentioned, special abilities. Maybe it gives you additional workers. Maybe it gives you a discount when you go to a certain type of spot in terms of workers. Or maybe it gives you a bonus when you go to a certain type of spot in the form of extra cubes. So that's really cool. It's almost a light engine building element. Additionally, these spots are not exclusive. You can go to a spot where someone already is, but you have to place the number of workers already there plus 1, and then you pull back, or the other player pulls back their workers, because it's one of those worker placement games where it's either you place workers out or you rest and pull them back. And you want to be as efficient as possible. You don't want to pull back too early. And so it's nice when someone might bump you out of a spot because maybe you're planning on resting next turn, but now you have workers available to you. Certain spots on the board start out covered. These are exploration tiles covering them. And certain of the goal cards may give you access to these exploration tiles, which may just give you points. They may give you bonus cubes. They may give you the symbols for endgame scoring. And at the end of the game, once someone has collected 8 of the goal cards, you're going to add up the points in all the goal cards. You're going to add up points for the set collection, and then also non-yellow cubes on your board are worth a point each. Am I missing anything, Alex?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, Alex, what were your expectations for Century: A New World?
Well, I think it's worth talking about it in the context of the trilogy as a whole, because Century Spice Road is one of those that was super elegant, relatively simple, easy for newer folks to pick up. Had this core mechanic that reminded you of a Splendor, just one of these elegant games. Doesn't have a ton of theme to it, and incredibly successful, but not necessarily one that I was clamoring to play all the time. Eastern Wonders added a little bit to that formula, and it was okay. I again, it didn't strike me as anything super special. This was not a series I was following or clamoring for or anything remotely along those lines. And so New World, I didn't have high expectations for it because it's not a series that's necessarily thrilled me so much as a whole. So that's where I came into it from. Yeah. What about you, Sean?
So actually, I only played Eastern Wonders, the second game, last night for the first time.
Oh.
Yeah. I figured, hey, let's give it a shot, because if we're going to be talking about the trilogy, I think that makes sense. And I like Century Spice Road a lot, the first game, right?
Sure.
I like it a lot. I think it's a really solid, lightweight gateway game that's pretty easy to teach. We kind of compared it, a lot of people kind of compared it to Splendor. And so if we're talking trilogies, you could say that Splendor is A New Hope. Century Spice Road is Force Awakens. Working with me here? See where
Okay.
And then for me, the middle game, Eastern Wonders, is what was it? Last Jedi, which I was not a fan of. Wasn't a big fan of Eastern Wonders because it's got that. It felt similar to Yamatai. I wasn't crazy about it, and so I'm hoping. I'll say this: I wound up enjoying a new world quite a bit, and so I'm hoping that's what's the new one. I can't even remember. I really don't.
A New World. A New World is the newest one.
The new Star Wars.
Oh,
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's good. Who knows? We'll see. So yeah, in fact, I avoided Eastern Wonders because I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like this. When I saw it, I heard about the gameplay. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to like this. With this, I was like, oh, this kind of looks like a very light Feast for Odin, in the sense of there's no Tetris polyomino stuff, but the way that the worker placement board is laid out has it's similar. I'm going to make a quick aside, Alex. Quick aside to how I got here. Because if you recall...
Oh, are we doing the Watergate part now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it now before we get into the meat of the review.
All right.
So, for those that don't know, and why this is Plan B, aside from this being a Plan B game, this is also our review Plan B. Because originally we were going to do Watergate. So, I had asked Rory at Empire Board Game Library, hey, when are you getting Watergate in? And he's like, Tuesday. That's 2 days before before we record the podcast. That's not a lot of time. I like to let a game kind of percolate a bit, but I'm like, that's fine. I'll probably get 4 or 5 plays of it in Tuesday night, Wednesday night. It's fine. So Tuesday, I call up our buddy Eugene, who works at Empire, and I say, hey, did the order come in? Because the order also was supposed to have my commander decks. The new Magic commander decks were supposed to come in. And he's like, nope, there was a screw up with the order, and they're not coming in until Thursday. I'm like, crap. Okay, so I call you, Alex, and do you remember your first words?
I said, I think I said I already know. I already planned for this.
Okay, was that an indictment of me or Rory?
The whole plan seemed unlikely to work.
Okay.
So I guess Rory?
Okay. I mean, because I had said to him, like, you're sure it's coming in Tuesday? Oh, yeah, it's coming in Tuesday. So anyway, and then you had said, well, we'd already kind of planned for this. Weeks ago, we had talked about having a new world in the hopper to do. And weeks ago, I had asked Rory, is a new world in the library? He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, you're sure? The new one, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, the third one, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I didn't think about it, didn't look for it. I figured it's in the library. And so on the phone, you're like, so you're sure you have access to a new world? I'm like, oh, yeah, Rory's got it in the shop.
Oh, no.
It's there. I get off the phone with you, and then I'm like, am I placing all of my faith and trust in Rory? So I call Eugene, and I'm like, Eugene, do you guys have Century in New World? He's like, no, we don't. Rory's meant to order that for like a month now. And I'm just like, okay, super. So I get on the phone with Active Imagination to see if they have it. I'm on my way to the gym. Gotta get my swole on.
Sure,
and
of course.
So I asked Raquel, I'm like, Raquel, can you call these other game shops for me? In the meantime, so I haven't gotten to the gym yet. In the meantime, I go to Target, I go to Barnes & Noble, and I go to Walmart. Walmart, by the way, is where I picked up Wakanda Forever. So it's Rory's fault that I bought Wakanda Forever. And nobody has it. Raquel calls me back. She called these 3 other shops. None of them have it. And I'm just like, oh man, I am not calling Alex back and telling him I screwed this one up. Because now it's my fault for trusting Rory, right?
Yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on Rory.
Exactly.
Everyone knows that.
So I look on Amazon, and I can order it. I had 15 minutes to order it for it to get here today, Thursday. And I'm just like, well, usually it comes in around 5.
Oh,
Sometimes
no.
I've known it to come in earlier. And so I had called Rory and I was like, okay, so if this game comes in today, I'm going to bring it over during lunch and we'll play it at lunch. Cool. It doesn't come during the day. I'm like refreshing the tracking information all day. I show up here at 5. And by this point, I've texted you. I haven't told you a word yet because I have faith, Alex. I have faith everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
And I text you. I'm like, hey, can we do 6:30? Because I'm like,
oh, yeah.
It's going to get here at 5.
Which is only a half hour later than our typical recording time. I thought you were just held up by something.
Yeah, no. I was held up by not having the review game. And so it shows up and I'm just like, oh man, what's going to happen? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I always have like the Gaia project in my back pocket, right? Like I've always got that card to play if it doesn't come in.
Uh-huh.
Because I made every effort to get a hold of this game, right? It comes in at 5:45. Raquel was on the phone. I'm like, Raquel, get off the phone. We got to play this right now. And
oh boy.
So I'd watched some reviews during the day, or not reviews, but like playthroughs to learn how to play. I very quickly like skimmed the rules to make sure I understood. And it's actually a pretty nice rule book, or rule pages, I should say.
It's very quick.
Yeah, it's very quick. It was great. And we got through a full game of this, although we're like going quick. I'm like, you have no time for AP. Just pick an action and just do it. And she'd ask, what does this symbol mean? I'm like, don't worry about it. Forget it. Just keep playing. And then the worst part, right? So Chewy's not here. There was no way we could have done this if Chewy were here the whole time. My mom on Tuesdays and Thursdays has been taking Chewy to swim lessons, and 6:20 rolls around, and that's about the time Chewy comes back. We're at our 7th of 8 goal card to end the game, and I'm like, oh no, we're not going to finish in time now. But we get it finished. So for full disclosure, this is off of one play.
A very fresh play, I might mention.
A very fresh play. I will say this. Very often, there are some games that you need to play out over time, and there are some games where I can, like during the rules explanation, I know I'm going to like it or not, right? Like when you've played as many games as we have, a lot of times you can figure that out. And especially like the simpler the game, the better. There was, when I watched some playthroughs of it, I'm like, nah, I don't know that I'm gonna like this too much because it just looks, number one, it looks too simple, but also too complex. So let me explain that. What I like about Century Spice Road is that it's pretty straightforward. It's a straightforward gateway game. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, and that's good. You tack on mechanics to that, and it has the potential to be worse. And from my perspective, I think Eastern Wonders was worse. And I thought this was going to be kind of like Eastern Wonders with the basic core of Spice Road with a worker placement tacked on. I wasn't going to care for it, but I actually wound up enjoying it quite a bit. So that's the quick aside, which wasn't so quick, but I think it was worth the story.
Can I tell you, this is, first of all, it perfectly pairs with what I was going to mention, because I mentioned I was going to throw some shade on the guild here.
Yeah.
So when I got informed that it was going to be Century a New, and I'd already prepped the guild for this, so I said in the on deck thread, for folks who don't know what that means, basically the Monday before we record, we post what we're going to be talking about on the episode. And I posted in that thread, hey, we're going to be reviewing Watergate. Although there's a small chance we'll need to do an emergency review of Century a New World, so provide those names as backups if you'd like. And then I got the call from you, like, not surprised, of course. Crossed it out, immediately posted in bold on the guild, hey, it's going to be Century New World instead, switch the names. And Willie Williams comes with the comment, and the name suggestion, Alex didn't play Watergate, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
That's not unfair, though.
For the record, I have played Watergate 4 times, maybe 5. I'd have to think about it. I was very well prepared for Watergate. I was also very well prepared for this, Sean, because I've played this at every single player count. I played this at 2. I played this at 3. I played this at 4. This game's gotten the Abby test, which I'm gonna be employing for as many games as I possibly can. So, hey, this is Freaky Friday, but it's actually Thursday when we're recording this, so joke's on you, Willie Williams. But, Sean's the jerk this time.
Well, first, I still have Gaia Project in my back pocket, right? because I went to an extreme to get a copy of this game, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I called every game store in town. I went to a bunch of stores that I thought would have it, and I got it done by the skin of my teeth.
Your response to the situation was a very Sean response.
Yes. It sure was.
In fairness, in that situation, by the way, you could have told me, let's record on Saturday, and that would have been okay.
I know, but it was the fact that because you said, are you sure you have access to it?
Yes.
And I should have said, you know what? Let me double check with Eugene first. So that was my big mistake. But Willie, I mean, if it's a blind shot, I don't think you were wrong. Right? I mean, let's just go with the odds. Let's just go with...
I'm just saying maybe folks should get some better information first.
Well, I'm also just saying things.
All right. Fair enough. So, cool. That's some good context for this. Well, Sean, given that you just learned the game, how was that rulebook?
Great. No, it's really good. So what's really cool, and I mean, another quick aside, is you can combine this with Century Spice Road. You can combine this with Century Eastern Wonders. You can combine this with both of them at the same time. And in order to make that easy, rather than have a booklet, you got to flip through all the pages, there is a sheet for each one of those games.
Yeah,
it's
those really
combinations
cool.
of games, right? And then there's also one for just the game by itself. Then there's a separate overview sheet that kind of explains some of the not terminology, but the symbology and whatnot. No, this was a really solid rules pamphlet. That's really a rules sheet. You can even call it a rule book. It was really good. I thought it was really solid. And ultimately, I mean, it is a fairly straightforward worker placement game. There's not a lot of complexity here. And so, but the rule book is solid. And I think there were, some questions. Oh, can I replace myself? No, you can't replace your workers. It says so right here. It's crystal clear. I thought it was solid.
Yeah, I thought it was solid too. I learned this game from the rulebook at Dice Tower Con, where I played with Dr. Gumbo, and it was easy enough to learn. It was very simple to grok. It was a little bit like, wait, isn't there more to this rulebook? What's going on? But it was, pleasantly simple and easy to get into. The only thing that I specifically remember struggling with, Sean, and you could maybe speak to this situation. My research online tells me I know an answer to this, but basically there's certain bonuses that get you discounts in this game.
Yeah.
And when you're bumping another person's worker, do you have to pay one more regardless, or do you have to pay the same to bump someone from that space if you have a discount on it?
No, I think you checked what you should pay. So
and then subtract one.
And then subtract.
Yeah, that's what I found online as well.
Okay. Yeah, so if there are 3 workers, you would have to pay 4, but if you have 2 discount cards that stack, the total cost to you is 2.
It's possible that's somewhere in that little rule book. I didn't see it, but the way that's resolved makes sense to me. That was the only ding I'd have on the rule book is that thing. But no, I love how they've made it so you can combine it with the other games in a super easy fashion. Setup is well explained. You can learn this game cold. It's fine if you have someone teaching you. You'll learn it faster, but even if you don't, it's pretty easy to pick up. So, yeah, big positive for the game. Components and art. Sean, what did you think of the look and the components of this game?
I think it looks good. I think all 3 of the games have pretty interesting table presence. They all come with these nice little plastic cup holders or cups or whatever for the different dice, so you can align them in order so you can see the progression.
I think of them more as bowls.
Bowls, sure.
That's just me.
That's just you. And the only problem I had with the game is the actual worker board itself, because it is modular, which is kind of nice. And part of that, there's not a whole lot of modularity with the base game, but apparently when you're mixing games, you need to change it out a bit. But it's the cardstock. They're cardstock boards. And in our quick play, granted, we were playing really quickly and just throwing things around, but I could see even in a normal pace game where they kind of get messed around a bit because they're just the cardstock. I don't know if you had that problem.
Yeah, they can certainly get bumped, and there's important things that need to stay in place on those, right? Whether it's previously placed workers or it's tiles that block off previous spaces. So yeah, that's not ideal. I get the practical need to have them, but you could have had the same. It costs more to do what I'm about to suggest, but you could have had the same kind of modularity in double printed
Right.
cardboard, and it
Yeah.
would have worked the same and probably better. There's economic reasons for why they did it that way. It's always going to be cheaper to do
Oh,
it
yeah.
on the thin version. My only component issue specifically, I think the workers they're really tiny.
Yeah, I think they needed to be. Otherwise, the board would have to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, I get that too, but they're really, really tiny.
Yeah.
Like, and now I will say this to Plan B's credit. They include a lot of extras of all of the different little
Yes.
bits in case you lose some, which I think is a very smart move and very, very nice of them to do, because that isn't free usually, and because those pieces are so small and are liable to get lost. What did you think of the art style?
I liked it. I mean, it's consistent with the other Century games, which, I mean, you would expect that to be the case. I mean, it wasn't, we talk about like it's a very competent art. I mean, I don't think, didn't it like wow me? I think it looked good, and there's certainly nothing to complain about.
It did not hold the game back.
Yeah. Oh, I will say that on the player or the worker boards, the main board of the game,
Mm.
it was a little busy. Like there's a bunch of background stuff, which I don't normally have this complaint. I almost wish they had been. I don't know. It was hard to see things sometimes.
Yeah, a little busy at times. I will tell you the only issue I ran into with that was in the game there are certain cards that unlock new spaces, which is I think a really cool mechanic, and we'll talk about gameplay in a little bit here. But if the one that you chose was in and amongst others that were already covered up, it was easy to forget that space existed.
Yeah.
That space could get lost in the shuffle, and that's not necessarily super great, but no, I think other than that, I like how the end game goal slots are shown in such a way where okay, it makes sense. I can do this. The cube limits on the player boards all work well. The iconography is easy enough to understand once you know how a couple of them work. You know how the rest work. The only ones that someone pointed out was the upgrade arrow pointing up and the trade arrow pointing down.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, that didn't strike them as the best possible iconography you could have used, but it was fine for me. I didn't have any confusion over the game, and no, I mean the game for the most part does a really good job on an iconography basis, graphic design basis, look basis, other than some minor quibbles. So yeah, again, another I think strength of the game, though I wouldn't say it's oh man, I'm blown away by the look of this kind of thing.
Sure.
All right, let's talk gameplay. And my thought when I played this game, Sean, was this is going to be too simple for Sean Ramirez, attorney at law, that this is not going to hold enough appeal. But I will say preliminarily, before you get into whether it is or isn't, in defense of this game, I think there's a good amount of depth here for a fairly simple set of mechanics. I like that the turns are fast. You only have the decision of place somewhere or pull back.
Right.
But the race for the cards can be really interesting. Which benefit am I going for? If this slides over here, do I have to bump someone? If I bump them, does that allow them to take actions to beat me to something else faster? What kind of engine am I building up? Am I going to try and generate extra cubes? Am I going for discounts? Do I take this endgame bonus now and then just work for it for the rest of the game? Or do I hope something else comes up that's better in one of the other cards that I purchased? Because of the 8 gold cards that you're going to get at maximum, you are only going to get endgame scoring tokens associated with 3 of them. I thought for all of that, plus the exploration and the opening of the worker placement spaces, there's a good amount going on here that has it feel a bit more than Spice Road, but not a bit more in the kind of Queen Domino sense, where some folks might think it kind of overcomplicates that simple formula.
Yeah.
I don't think it does that at all. I think it provides a good balance of simplicity to get into with depth in the game. And I was very pleasantly surprised with this one, Sean, on a gameplay front. Now the golden question for you: too simple for you?
No, not at all. I mean, granted, it is a gateway game. In fact, do you remember, Alex, that we used to do a video on Board Game Breakfast called Building Blocks?
I do. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. So basically, the idea with Building Blocks is, hey, you want to teach someone a certain game that's probably a little bit beyond Gateway or even Gateway itself, and they're kind of a newer gamer, this is a simpler game that you can use as a building block to get up to that. So, like, for example, we did for negotiation. If you want to play a game like Nothing Personal, a building blocks might be Bonanza. Or for like an area control game, if you're going to play like El Grande or Rising Sun, start off with something like 8-Minute Empire by Red Raven Games. So anyway, I remember when we were doing these segments, I was trying to come up with a worker placement game that would serve as a building block. And anything I could think of was too complicated to be a building block. This feels like a building block. Maybe slightly heavier than some of the other games that we had in building blocks, but I feel like this is a perfect game to teach worker placement.
Yeah, I could say that. I could say that for sure.
And it's not your run of the mill worker placement where you place something and it's exclusive to you. This is like I said, kind of like the Feast for Odin worker placement where there's this whole bunch of spaces and there's variable workers or variable number of workers you can use on these different spaces. I thought it was great. Like you said, it is a simple rules overhead with a little bit more complexity than Spice Road that doesn't feel tacked on and doesn't feel like added complexity just for the sake of added complexity. I was quite surprised how much I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And while this won't be my go-to worker placement game because it's not the weight of games that I would typically play. If it's me and other gamers of that like the weight of games that I like, but if we want to teach someone worker placement, man, it's solid. It really is.
The whole management of workers is an interesting decision point in this game. What kind of cards you go for? Again, that stacking of discounts. Do you try and race? Do you try and go really quickly and get to those 8 cards fast? But you may fall short points wise because other people have been building more valuable cards or getting better discounts and building better engines. There's a little bit of engine building in here too, which I think is quite useful. So it has a little bit of everything, but again, it's not so much of something that it's going to be overwhelming for newer players. And I think there's enough meat on this bone to be satisfying for gamers.
Yeah, I think so too. And I found the engine building fairly satisfying. It's not like crazy engine building. But,
no.
So in Eastern Wonders, there's also a little bit of engine building. If you're building outposts and if you build the right combination, emptying columns, then you can choose from the available bonuses. But it didn't feel like enough of a bonus. It didn't feel like enough of engine building, at least in, again, the one play of that game that I had. Here, though, especially where you're stacking bonuses, like where you're stacking discounts on certain spots, or you're getting extra cubes for other spots, it was a very satisfying engine building element that I was not expecting it to be as satisfying as it was.
Yeah, I wasn't either, and was pleasantly surprised with the play because it has grabbed me in a way that the other 2 games in the series never did. And yeah, you always want to be cognizant of what other people are doing in this game. And I will tell you this, Sean, it plays pretty well regardless of the count.
I would think so.
Abby and I played a very satisfying 2-player game of this. She dug it. She wasn't a huge fan of the art style. It didn't grab her like Wingspan did. But the gameplay itself, it was for folks who remember the Abby scale. It goes from a heck yeah at the very top, all the way down to a no, and this got a yeah, which is basically a 5. So pretty solid score from her. And yeah, we'll see where we end up on our scores for this one, Sean. But I don't have a ton bad to say about the gameplay of this. I mean, it's short downtime. The gameplay itself doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not fiddly. It's decently enough produced. There's not a ton bad to say about this one. It's just an overall a nice experience.
Yeah, I think so. And I think too, I really like the grabbing goals in this game. I like it more than in either other game. So you always have these goal cards or goal tiles in Eastern Wonders, but the fact that it's tied to 2 other things, right? It's tied to some sort of benefit that you're getting from the card itself, aside from just the points. And also you have the option to take a bonus tile associated with the spot that the card is in, which potentially adds more to endgame scoring. It felt like there was enough to balance, to be strategic and tactical at the same time, without necessarily being too overwhelming for a new player.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm looking for in a gateway game, right? I'm looking for something where someone's not going to be super overwhelmed and I'm still going to feel challenged and even have opportunities to feel relatively clever. And I think I had those in my one play. I think that building that engine is, like I said, it's satisfying and it leads to those moments where you're feeling clever, that I didn't get from, say, Eastern Wonders.
Yeah. Good moments of cleverness. I think one of my favorite things about this is the ability to open up new spaces on the board.
Yeah.
That was super cool. It's a decision of what's best for me now. And also, if I open up this particular space, do I have an engine that's going to benefit me, or is this going to be something that's going to help other folks? So there's an interesting balancing act there when those cards come up. But even if all those spaces stay locked, there's still an interesting game there. But yeah, the opening of those spaces, plus the variability of which of the 4 boards are you using for that one board that changes, it all adds up. And it's held up now. I think I've played this 4 or 5 times at all counts. Happy to play this one more and more. It has not worn out its welcome. And I can't say as much for the other 2 games in the series. So
let me ask you this, just off my one play. I found in a 2-player game, as we gained more workers, and we only explored 2 spots.
Okay. Yeah, and then sometimes the deck just does that.
Yeah. Because basically that's, one of the potential bonuses on the goal cards is to open up one of the explore spots and get that bonus. So I found that, obviously it's nice having more workers because in theory you can place more things out before having to waste a turn on resting to pull all your workers back, right? But at 2 players, there was less bumping, I felt like, and there were more spaces that I was occupying. And sometimes it almost felt like having more workers was a bit of a detriment. And I would have turns where I'm like, well, I have 1 or 2 left. I think I'm just going to pull rather than place them all out. Did you find that was less of an issue at the higher player counts because there would be more bumping?
Correct. Yeah, there is bumping is a bigger factor in those player workers feel much tighter.
Okay.
In the higher player counts than they might in a 2-player game. There's also bumping is a lot less palatable in a 2-player game because you're directly benefiting or giving resources to the other person. Sure. So, having more workers is actually a very positive thing. But it's not the end all be all. There's if you take the strategy of, well, I'm just going to get more workers all the time.
Right.
That's not necessarily the answer. But there's that gamer itch inside of you to be efficient. To do is if you're resting on a turn, it feels like you're not doing anything, right? It feels like you're just pulling everyone back and kind of sitting. But I like the fact that you can't bump yourself because it keeps you from doing these infinite loops. And it adds some degree of balance to the game to where even if someone's built a really nice engine, they may only be able to run it every 4 or 5 turns in between when they're pulling workers. So, I can see how at a 2-player game it can prove a little bit tricky, but honestly, I think my favorite count is 3 for this game, but 4 works just fine too.
Yeah, I can see
both
that.
of those. 2 works well, but I think my favorite counts are 3 and 4. This game doesn't bog down at 4 players like I was talking about Ishtar earlier in the show, like that game does, because the turns are just so snappy. They're very quick. So yeah, that's gameplay. Theme, Sean.
Yeah, I thought it was, fairly thematic. Looking again at the trilogy, we're starting off with the Spice Road, right? That's the road from Europe to China, and opening up the Eastern Wonders, and now going to North America and South America for the New World. So like having corn and tobacco and fur and meat, I thought was pretty thematic. Certain bonuses like where you're able to get the gold cards at a cheaper worker discount is by having help from the natives, things like that. So yeah, I think it's thematic-ish, but it's still a Euro game, so not supremely thematic.
No, it's not supremely thematic. It's more so than certainly Spice Road was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a great strength of the game, and honestly, it doesn't need to be. So, yeah. Before we get to our final thoughts and ratings, the Guild, and just one member of the Guild, Dr. Gumbo, who says, I've only played Century: A New World once, coincidentally with Alex at Dice Tower Con, and I liked it best of the trilogy. I realize I'm probably in the minority, but I rank them New World, Eastern Wonders, Spice Road. Spice Road does nothing that Splendor didn't do. Eastern Wonders is a cool, quick-to-play, pick-up-and-deliver puzzle, but New World's race elements add a lot of tension and exploration that I enjoyed. So there you go. That's the Guild thoughts. Sean, why don't you go first with this? The one-play score.
The one-play score, which I mean, I can stand by it, but just for, like I said, for full disclosure, be aware of that. So I would actually disagree with counsel with Dr. Gumbo just a little bit. I think that what Spice Road does different than Splendor is Spice Road introduces a hierarchy of the goods.
Sure.
Right? In Splendor, for the most part, every chip, every gem is equivalent to any other one. It's just kind of based on what's out there and whatnot. Here, there's a little bit of got to collect this, but also got to turn this into this, so I can turn this into this. So I think it adds something a little bit different there, which is why I actually prefer it over Splendor. So for me, I would say that Eastern Wonders is firmly on the bottom, and I would say New World and Spice Road. I don't know. I think I'd be hesitant to. I probably like A New World better. And I'll probably get some more plays of this in. I know Empire's finally getting copies in, so it'll probably get played a couple times in the next couple weeks, and I'll fill everyone back in if I get some more plays of it in.
You got a whole year, Sean.
Well, that's true. That's true. So let's see here. So we do things here on a 6-point scale. 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. Sometimes we give a game a certain classification, like we might say, oh, this is a filler 5 or a filler 6. This isn't a filler game. I mean, if we were to do a gateway score, it would probably bump this up a full level for me. So I would say that this is, in a vacuum, a 4 out of 6. A good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. As far as a gateway, I would call this a great game. A great gateway game will rarely turn down a play of it. But yeah. I'll stand by the 4. It's a 4.
Okay. Yeah, and I think for your tastes, that's actually pretty good for this kind of game.
Absolutely.
So Sean, I come down because my tastes tend to be a little bit lighter and a little bit more experiential maybe sometimes. Sure. Not that this is an experiential game by any means. But this better fits my tastes than it would yours anyway.
Sure.
But I'm going to give this one a great game, a 5. Great game, will rarely turn down a play of it, and I think that's true. It's satisfying. It plays well with a wide array of player counts. It's decently enough produced, but it puts a great spin on the Century formula that has it feel fresh and interesting, even to gamers. And I think Emerson and the crew at Plan B did a great job with this one. This is easily my favorite of the series. It's not even close for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's really solid, and I like the fact that it's such a quick, snappy game, because I feel like a lot of times we have like a newer gamer coming to game night, and this is something we could bring out that's still fairly quick, and we can finish up by the time everyone's kind of settling into other stuff. So
yeah, no doubt. Very good. Well, that's going to do it for our review of Century: A New World, a 4/Gateway 5 from Sean, and a straight 5 from me.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out Dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
This week on our Dukes Double Take, we're taking a look back at Rajas of the Ganges from episode 181. The Ganges is back together. Sean, at the time, you gave this one a 3, saying it was the quintessential usage of the ducal. Fine. Lots to like about it, but didn't wow you. did things a little bit differently than a lot of midweight Euros. I gave this one a high 3. I said it didn't stand out from the crowd for me, but if I were to compare it to something like, say, Voyages of Marco Polo, I'd rather play that than Voyages of Marco Polo. Sean, have you played this game since?
Heck no. I think I sold it in our Gamers Garage sale like a week or two after the review. And, it's a dice placement game. There's kind of a race element to it. There's these dual scores. Like you had mentioned, it does a lot of really interesting things, and it does things differently than a lot of other midweight Euros. And it's a good game. Like, it's a really good game, but it just didn't wow me. And I think I probably said at some point in the review, like, check this game out. Like, it's good. And I think that a lot of people, in fact, I said, I think this has a very broad appeal. But for whatever reason, and part of it was this was kind of when the shine of midweight Euros was starting to fade for me.
Yeah, no, this was definitely in the thick of that.
Yeah. And it's definitely worth checking out. And my 3, which is a game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. It's not super fair to the game in a certain sense.
Sure. I will say I just looked this up on BGG. The game is certainly well regarded. It's in the top 200 all time on BGG, which is incredibly solid.
Absolutely get it.
And I totally get it. I had a decent time too, but I haven't played it again. I haven't played it since. It just didn't. There wasn't anything that was special enough for it to kind of stick around for me. And I think that's maybe kind of the reviewer's curse in a sense, is you see a lot of comparisons that some people in a vacuum. I think in a vacuum, this game would score higher. But I think there's other games that do what it's trying to do better, and it just didn't grab me. And I haven't played it since. But I don't have anything super negative to say about it, other than it's just not one that really stood out from the pack for me.
And for the record, I would play Voyages of Marco Polo over this any day of the week.
Well, I know you would, but you actually like that game.
Yeah, it's super good.
Brett Mowers from the Guild says, Rajas is still a good game for me. I know the Dukes didn't particularly love it, but I enjoy watching new players figure out the multiple ways to make those markers move around the board once they figure out it's a race, not a Euro. The art and components are very nice, and it has a great table presence. It's a good game, not a great game, and remains a 4 for me. And I think that's probably about where it should be.
So are you saying it goes up to a 4?
No, that's what Brett says. It's a 4 for him. No, I'm keeping it at a high 3. I don't have any reason to move it. I haven't played it since.
Yeah, but you said it, but I think that's where it belongs.
Yeah, I think that's probably where it would fairly belong.
Oh, okay.
But remember, this is a subjective scale. It's a scale based on our own game tastes, how this compares to other things. Does it fit neatly into a collection? Is this something you're clamoring to play? And I haven't given this game a second thought since we reviewed it. I had to kind of refresh my memory by looking at a few pictures to remind me of, oh yeah, this is how this works and this is how that. And yeah, it's a fine game, but I don't see it as worth having access to, because I didn't care about having access to it for the last year. So no, it's still a high 3.
Okay.
But I think the game itself is better than that score would indicate.
Sure.
So
yeah, and I'm keeping mine at a 3. So
yeah, I figured as much. So yeah, that's going to do it for the Duke's Double Take. Stays at a 3 for both of us, but kind of regretful 3s if you listen closely enough. So yeah. Well, Sean, I know Chewy is clamoring for some attention.
Man, we had to stop several times during the recording because she wants her dada.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up with the rest of the top 6. And I will say this, the Guild did a great job actually with kind of quickly pivoting to these names. But I feel bad because there were some great Watergate-related names that hopefully can at least somewhat be worked into next time around, when we will probably be reviewing Watergate.
Probably.
So.
Oh, by the way, Watergate did not come in tonight.
Yeah, okay. I also figured that was going to be true, too.
It's coming in tomorrow.
Oh, great. Excellent. Well, that's fine. I mean, that's certainly in plenty of time for any potential review. All right. First up in the rest of the best, DJ from Board Game Gumbo with Ganges. Referencing the big announcement that I made at the start of this episode, which, in case you missed it, I'm leaving Grey Fox Games, and also Rajas the Ganges.
So Jonas Resting Jepson suggested best of the century. What do you know? Did you see the explanation for that? I mean, obviously, century the Century
I
series.
primarily like this name because, well, first of all, let me be clear. We didn't have as big of a selection of names as we typically do.
Right.
Regardless of that, this is the best of the Century games. I think we both agree on this.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So that's kind of why I picked it. It's only tied to one thing, but whatever. And all right, Brett Mowers with Spice and Dice, which is a clever, catchy name. But I remember Rice and Dice. Someone suggested that name a while ago. We might have even named an episode after that. I'd have to look it up.
Like Spirits of the Rice Paddy or something.
Yeah, maybe.
That's probably.
So it was too close to that one, but I thought that was a pretty decent name. So nice job, Brett.
And then Tim Tick suggested Buck Rogers in the 3rd Century, which is, of course, a Buck Rogers reference, and throwing in Century for the Century games. So that's really clever.
Yeah, I dug that one. And then Randy Bieri with a name that actually is more clever the more you think about it, American Indian Euro. Referencing Indian for Rogers of the Ganges, American Indian for Century A New World, and hey, both of those are Euro-y kinds of games.
Yeah,
so
clever.
Yeah, really smart name there. But not the one we picked.
Well, thanks, Guild. Appreciate all the help. But that's going to go ahead and do it for episode 207. Thanks again to Blaine Miley for giving us our title, The Plan B episode.
Yes, indeed. Sean, I wish you best of luck in losing more weight in the coming weeks. Hopefully I'll have good luck, finding another job.
Yeah, I hope you do. Also, there is a spider that just came down right in front of me from the ceiling, which always freaks me out. So until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And good luck on that job search.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on August 22nd, 2019. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers LLC. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders' fine games at ArcaneWonders.com and find out all about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!